One more second. Man, and how do I show my notes to myself on my screen? I had it earlier. Kind of that two screen thing.
I don't know how I took
Okay,
it out of present view and I don't know how to put it back in.
that's fine. As long as I have some notes. All right, everybody, thanks for joining us for the WRPA. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm working on my master's degree. It's a psychology class called Organizational Leadership. Working with people, as you all know, can be extremely rewarding, but understanding how people are different from us, it's an effort, right? Understanding yourselves is an incredible first place to start. But then once you understand yourself and start trying to understand people, wait, it didn't show my screen. So it's changing on this screen, Manon, but not what you guys are seeing. So I think you're gonna have to come help me again. So this will change, but that's not changing. Okay, there we go. So you can just look around the room and you can see that people are different from you. Everybody has individual differences. Everybody is completely different in how they act and they behave and what they understand and their skill set. And it makes everybody incredibly unique. Sometimes you wonder, how do people behave so differently? If they would do what I do, they would be more successful. How come some people seem to know so much about the world around them and or be so perceptive of how other people feel emotionally? And those are all different types and different things that go into a personality. How come some people are so talented at certain skills? And how do they grow and develop those various skills? How are they really good at time management, customer service, etc.? And we're going to take a look at all of those things because what a person, there's their behavior, how they behave, acumen, how they see the world internally and externally. Again, those personal skills and competencies. You know, a salesperson has different competencies and skills, and we've all had different experiences from the time that we were born. Our parents were all different. How we see the world is different. How we were raised, the rules that our parents had, all of those experiences, personal and professional, in our work life, that really shapes who we are. Our education and our training. You know, Manon has a degree in marketing. I have a degree in accounting. Melissa has a degree in math. So think about how much that changes our perspective and who we are. And what we're really going to cover today is the motivators. That's what we're going to spend most of the time on. And I think of motivators as, man, what lights my fire? And when you feel like the emotion in your body, it's the motivators that we're going to cover today. And everybody has different motivators. There's 12 of them that we're really going to spend some time on and see how they are, because everybody's is different. Everybody's degree to which they have these motivators varies on a scale from one continuum to the next. And intelligence, everybody has a different, you know, IQ score. And when you do assessment tests, assessments don't typically measure IQ, but IQ, you know, if somebody has a really low IQ of, you know, 70, they're probably working at Mesa Developmental Services in the yard crew or in the wood shop versus somebody who is over on the other extreme of the bell curve, you know, 120 or above. Sometimes people like that are hard to relate to as somebody who has a lower IQ. So that's why there's a bell curve. And then emotional intelligence. This is huge these days, right? How well do you understand yourself? How well do you understand other people? How do you behave? And growing emotional intelligence in your day-to-day life, that can really change a lot on how you relate with other people. And if you understand these things about yourself, then you can begin to look at other people and understand and accept and appreciate other people's skills. So, behaviors. So, when we think of behaviors, think about people, they might rub you the wrong way, you can't understand them. And again, how are some people so good at some things that you're like, why am I not better at time management? Why is my desk a mess? So, all of those things are how people behave. So, think about how competitive are you? Do you want to win or do you not care? Urgency. How fast do you take action when you have a task assigned to you? Is it something that you have to do immediately, or do you suffer from procrastination and it might be hard for you to take emergent action? So, frequent change. Do you like to have somebody come into your office or day to day where you can just jump up and go do something? Or do you like to have things planned out, vacations planned out, a schedule, an itinerary, and analysis? How are you at compiling data? So, if you look at a salesperson, analyzing data is compared to an accountant looking at a spreadsheet, two different ends of the spectrum, right? Neither one of them's right, neither one of them's wrong. They just behave differently. Interaction. Accountants are always labeled, they don't want to interact or communicate with the outside world. And I know that that's certainly changing as we look at the new generation of accountant type people who's coming into the world, that they really like to interact with other people. Persistence. Do you try to achieve a goal or a task despite challenges or resistance? Is your spreadsheet not working right and you get frustrated? Following policy, adhering to the rules, regulations. Do you speed? Do you always follow the rules? Cross on the crosswalk, etc. How people oriented are you? Again, salespeople tend to be extremely people oriented and build rapport and have a magnetic personality. And if you look at Marika on our team, and if you've attended any of her webinars, so one of her behaviors is huge toward being oriented to individuals, and she can build rapport immediately when she walks into a room. Organized workspace, establish and maintaining specific order for daily activity. So not only your desk, but your life in general. Are you organized? Do you like stuff in a specific order? Is your desk messy? Consistent, perform predictable, repetitive actions, right? So I have a real hard time doing consistent work, repetitive stuff that's not in my skill set. And this is actually the list of things that I'm really good at to the things that I am not as good at. And it's, you guys know a lot about me, that I can be super competitive. I take action really quick. You give me something, I jump on it. But customer oriented, I'm not the one who's going to answer the phone every day. And so those are behaviors. And everybody is a mix of all of those things in varying degrees of its intensity. So the next thing is acumen. So what is the depth of understanding, the keenness of perception and discernment that you have for the world around you and within yourself? And this is a whole big section on personalities, right? So we're not going to cover a ton of it because it's a big topic of understanding yourself and others, right? So how well do you know yourself? What are your internal emotions? Sometimes people have a hard time labeling emotions within themselves unless they've taken some specific like emotional intelligence classes or something. And how do I understand the world around me? And again, it goes back to nature and nurture. How well do I understand the world around me? How well do I understand the world within me? And how do I react to those two things? in making my decision, right? Maybe, you know, I had an exceptional childhood and my parents were incredibly nurturing and asked me about my feelings every day and explained everything to me. That person is going to be very different in their worldview than somebody who maybe grew up in a third world country and didn't see TV until they were 30. So, personal skills. So we'll go a little bit into personal skills and competencies. So these are things that we can develop and change, right? How do you become good at a personal skill and competencies? And there's a huge list of personal skills. And it's, again, your education, your environment, things that you're naturally good at that you develop and master over time. But it doesn't mean that you can't grow your personal skill set over time. So in our team, and it's just because I've done DISC assessments on them, I can look at my team's personal skills. And of course, I'm going to give them more things that they're really good at and really developed. So if I look at Rebecca, conflict management, that's her number one skill. Understanding and addressing and resolving conflicts constructively with our clients, with her team members, with the team that she leads, and appreciating others. So, Rebecca, a skill that she has learned is to really appreciate others. Melissa has that skill, Manon has that skill. The other skill that Melissa has that's really well developed, she has taken time, energy, and effort to learn how to master the skill. It's time and priority management, prioritizing and completing tasks in order to give the desired outcomes in an allotted time frame. And it's crazy to think that that is a skill that people can learn. And you start with a to-do list and you start with deadlines and goal setting. And a lot of times people in college that have gone to college, I find, have a better time and priority management skill set than someone who hasn't, because we spent 4 years learning how to get through 120, 30 credit hours in a short amount of time. And we had multiple classes. We had to learn how to prioritize our assignments, etc. So one of the things that is a top skill that I have is creativity and innovation. And you're like, girlfriend, have you ever seen a picture that you've painted? No, it's not that type of creativity, right? So I am good at creating new approaches, efficiencies, processes, how I do things to deliver an end result. Oftentimes I can see stuff in my head and I think about, how do we do more efficient? How do I do this? How do I do that? And the skill that Manon has is she can see these crazy things in my head. We can have a conversation. She can put them down on paper for me and make a process and a procedure. Melissa has a similar skill set of knowing that I'm super creative and need to design a new process and procedures. And it's not art, it's processes and procedures that I see, and they help fulfill those things for me. And Manon, appreciating others, another strong personal skill of hers, and customer focus. So when I think of Manon, appreciating and meeting and exceeding customer needs, wants, and expectations. And these are skills that are measurable on an assessment, but these are things that when you're working with people that you don't necessarily understand that it's a skill set that they have, that it's easily measured. You can just see it when you're working with them, and it's a great thing. And all of these things can be developed. So emotional intelligence. So this has been in the news and the media a lot in the last few years, because as organizations grow and develop, growing and developing their team members' emotional intelligence has been a huge movement. And maybe I just see that given the degree that I've been working on and a lot of leadership and coaching classes that I've taken throughout the years on raising a person's IQ and how they understand themselves, how they see the world, how they behave, why people behave in the way they do. Because with emotional intelligence, there's interpersonal and intrapersonal. So how I relate to myself and how I understand other people, like their emotions. How self-aware and are people emotionally? When they feel anger or resentment or joy, do they understand that they're feeling those emotions interpersonally? And how can they relate to other people? We've got a coworker who's having a really bad day or a great day. So can you see that when you walk into a room? Can you read a room and can you understand it? And how do you behave? How do you control yourself, your self-management, your reactions to stuff? Are you really expressive? And if you're really good at your own interpersonal stuff, when other people need help with their emotions or their behaviors, you can be a model and have a clear understanding of what other people are going through and how they're dealing with stuff once you raise your emotional intelligence score. And then it all relates to work. Then once you understand yourself and you understand others, you can improve your own work performance and you can help other people improve their work performance also. So motivators. So again, we're going to spend a lot of time today on motivators, the 12 driving forces. And again, it's on a continuum, right to left. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just who we are and how we are, nature, nurture, biology, DNA, who our parents were, etc. Our life experiences help us or help create what drives us, what we're super passionate about. And again, these are the things that cause us energy, like in our heart and in our stomach when things happen. Sometimes our driving forces, again, it's on a continuum. There's averages for people. And when we fall outside of the average, right? Like when we talked about IQ, you've got low IQ and high IQ. And people with low IQ have their own sets of struggles and it's hard. And people with really high IQ have a similar set of struggles, right? So people who are in the norm, same way with driving forces, if you're kind of in the normal statistically average range, then it's not noticeable. When our driving forces and what motivates us falls outside of those averages, that's when people notice them or we notice them, or they might have an impact on our life and our performance reviews, things like that. So if you think of Donald Trump, he's certainly motivated by commanding and controlling, and we'll look at that. And Mother Teresa, super altruistic and harmonious, right? Two extremes. So we're going to look at them a little bit more. I have to pull up another document, so give me 1 second. So again, think of this as a continuum. Knowledge goes from someone who's instinctive to someone who's intellectual. So it doesn't measure IQ. So someone can have an IQ of 72 and be intellectual. Someone can have a really high IQ and be instinctive. That they're driven by past experiences, utilizing intuition and past knowledge to make judgments for today, to move forward, to do certain things. Where an intellectual person is driven by pursuits to learn, acquire more knowledge, a professor at a college. That's kind of what I see as an intellectual person. They just have to, they have a PhD because they want to know more and want to know more and want to know more. And it's continual driving pursuit. So again, if you fall outside of the norm, if you're passionate, right, about intellectual, So if you have somebody like that and they work for you and you take away learning opportunities, or they won't work for you if they don't have an opportunity to learn, to grow, develop, take classes, getting their CPP, right? That's what an intellectual person is like. Not that an instinctive person can go to college. He can earn a degree, he can have, pretty good GPA. And when he starts working, he's able to take that knowledge from a college class or classes or a seminar and immediately come back and put it to work. And an intellectual person, they have pursuit of knowledge just for the sake of knowledge. My master's degree, right? I'm not going to use it day to day on payroll, but I find it super fascinating. So I tend to fall on the other side of the spectrum where I investigate and learn stuff that's absolutely useless to me at work. Well, it's not really absolutely useless, but it's just for me. So stress factors at work. So an instinctive person, if they are forced to learn, required to learn, their job is learning. They have to learn new things. It can be a stress factor on them, right? If they have to conduct excessive research before drawing a conclusion, it can be stressful for them. Just like an intellectual person, if you take away opportunities for them to learn and grow, it's going to be really hard for them. And if you don't give them time to investigate and learn something about a problem, it can be stressful. So intellectual is a person who wants all available knowledge on the subject simply to understand it, regardless of the direct application. Again, my master's degree, I'm not going to necessarily use it in payroll. Instinctive, a person who only wants the knowledge necessary to accomplish the task at hand. So they're going to Google something to find the answer. So there's no right, there's no wrong. It's just a continuum. Sometimes it's hard to relate to people if you're on one extreme and you're like, why aren't people researching that? They should look up the answer themselves. Well, an instinctive person, they only want to get information that's relevant to their job. So then we get to utilitarian, specifically how people place value on gaining return of investments of their time, talent, and resources. So resourceful people are driven by practical results, maximizing both efficiency and return for their investment of time, talent, energy, and resources. So I'm going to say Mother Teresa was not resourceful. Mother Teresa was selfless. And so she was just happy to take care of the people in a third world country, and she got fulfillment by completing a task for completion's sake. She likes to mark the done off her checklist, and she doesn't expect, because she marked the done off her checklist, that she's going to get paid anymore. So a resourceful person, Donald Trump, right? Person that's passionate about getting a return on their investment, time, talent, and resources. So when you look at people who you work with, you can have a person who likes to train and help people, and they're going to be more on the selfless side of the spectrum versus a resourceful person who's trying to be efficient. And let me pull up some stressors. Give me just 1 second.
They can't. You have to. Yes.
So a selfless person, they're really good on a team. They're going to complete a project and they're not going to expect a personal return. They're not going to expect a bonus. They like completing tasks just for the sake of accomplishment. They focus on the greater good versus a return on investment for their resources. They value people for who they are versus what they can provide to them. So a person who is resourceful, they like to measure things for results. Everything's about measuring return on investment. How much time did I spend on this task? Can I make it more efficient? Okay, so then we've got aesthetic. So you think of aesthetic as pictures and beautiful things, and that's true to a degree. So people are either objective or harmonious or somewhere in between, right? So they focus on their surroundings. Ooh, there's a spelling. I had trouble with spell check on this. And I even tried to get Man's help, but sorry for the typo. So people who are objective versus harmonious. So if you think about the surroundings on your desk or your work environment, right? Do you have pretty things? Do you have pictures of your family? Do you have awards? Do you have plaques or calendars with cute pictures on them? You're probably more on the harmonious side versus the objective side. I could have blank walls, right? Because things to me have to be functional. My furniture has to be functional. My clothes has to be functional. I don't wear scarves and super fancy stuff because that's more on the harmonious side. Flowers, bright colors, right? So characteristics of an objective person in the workplace. So an objective person can compartmentalize chaos, right? So if there's a lot going on in their life, they can focus their energy and effort on a desired outcome. They're not distracted by stuff that's, outside, mess on their desk, etc. It doesn't bother them because they can focus on the piece of paper in front of them. They have an ability to view everything in pieces and focus on one piece at a time. That is both good and bad. And I had this conversation with Manon the other day that happen to be objective, Manon happens to be harmonious. And when we work on a project together, I focus on some little details sometimes. And Manon will work on a project and she will see a 360-degree view of the project and again deliver those customer service expectations. Another portion of her personality, she'll deliver to me something that I didn't see because I was so focused on this detail. And it's just two ends of the spectrum, right? I, as an objective person, I can isolate issues, especially personal issues, from work issues so that I can stay productive at work and I'm not going to let my personal life interfere with work. Bad things, I leave it at the door. And again, I tend to be concerned with function over form. So give me a super comfortable couch. And I don't care if it's made out of velvet, doesn't matter to me. It's where the harmonious person places value and they enjoy the beauty in the experience, right? They like to take vacations. They like to have family and friends over. Their surroundings are amazing. You walk into the house and it's decorated, right? And they seek life balance. So their personal life and their home life is important to them as their work. And if So if you have a harmonious person working 60 hours a week during tax season, man, their head's going to explode. They just can't do it. And they will probably leave that type of job because they're willing to give 40 hours a week, but they're not going to give 60. It's not right. It's not wrong. It just is what it is. And as I've done DISC assessments over, I don't know, I've owned this company 18 years, I see more people are being harmonious versus objective. And if we think of nature, nurture, how our parents were raised, how we were raised, these characteristics and what motivates society as a whole changes over time. So what was important to our parents isn't necessarily what's important to the generation now. So a harmonious person, they flourish in an environment where people are happy and there's life balance and they have relationships at work. And they focus on everybody receiving rewards, not rewards, rewarding relationships. They want to make everybody happy. And they like tranquility at home and at work, and they don't like a lot of stress. And they're concerned with form over function. So, they need the pictures on the wall. They need the house decorated versus just having, a box to sit on. So two different ends of the spectrum, and neither one is right or wrong. It's just how people are, nature, nurture. Sometimes things that stress out a harmonious person is if the objective person or their work environment places too much emphasis on function, or they're in a dingy work environment, or their home is like dingy and yucky, and it's just an ugly environment in general. Disarray in their workplace, if their desk is really messy, if their office is really messy because they see everything out in front of them, they can have a really hard time concentrating and focusing. If a harmonious person is versus an objective person is getting an email and a phone call and somebody's walking into their office, hair's on fire, right? They can't handle it. They're like, oh my gosh, I can't handle it. It stresses them out, right? It's a chaotic work environment. And if you have a person that just is having a really tough time, if you were to move them to an office space where it was less chaotic and it was beautiful, they could, decorate their desk and they could control the interactions, then they're going to be much happier, much more productive. Maybe if they had an office with a view, that would be a perfect situation for them. So if you think of social and others, a person that values giving, being of service, and helping others. So there's altruistic and intentional. So if you think again of Mother Teresa, altruistic, Donald Trump, intentional. So an altruistic person focuses on others and benefits that they can provide them. Again, Mother Teresa, taking care of people. An intentional person will assist others if they see a connection to something important to themselves. Again, think of Donald Trump. He was very intentional. If he could get people to do things for him, then he was happy. If Donald Trump had to go to the homeless shelter and feed people, I think his head would explode, right? Because he just didn't want to provide benefit to the people as a whole. Again, it's a continuum. There are two extremes, and most people fit right in the end, right? They can go to their local church and feed homeless people, and they're fine. So as we look at the continuum of intentional, and I haven't asked anybody if they have questions. I see something in chat. Oh man, said Angela, I think you have more pictures in your office than mine. That's true. True. But you've got a littler desk. I think that's the only reason. Man is a snappy dresser, though, let me tell you. She can dress. All right. Intentional is people who are driven to assist others for specific purpose, not for just being helpful and supportive. So if you think of somebody who might be a manager over people, onboarding new employees, she agreed. She may not, be super excited, but she agreed to help people. And then you notice all of a sudden she's not helping all the same people equally, right? Um, like, oh, she's got favoritism, right? Because she's not going to assist people, somebody who's intentional, just for the sake of helping them. Or an altruistic person, think of Mother Teresa, she had to get nothing back. She enjoyed helping people just because it satisfied her soul, right? And if you tried to take that away from Mother Teresa, she couldn't handle it because she was so motivated by helping people. And someone who's intentional can see people as part of a tool set and not necessarily as a person, that they can use people to accomplish their own goals. Intentional people tend to be non-emotional. They, they come to work, they make business decisions, they take the emotion out of it. And where more altruistic people, they have a tendency to notice and respond to people in need, right? Somebody on their team. So if you have an altruistic manager, they can work with people, they like supporting, and they don't have to get return on investment. They like assisting people for the sake of helping them. And if somebody's really extreme altruistic, right, they'll sacrifice their own personal gain in any situation if it's going to be detrimental to others, right? So trying to think of a situation, going home early. So the altruistic person has worked really hard, they've hit their 40 hours, they can clock out, but they look around the office and see other people are still working and need help. That altruistic person isn't going to clock out. They're going to stay and help their team members to a degree because they've got that life balance. They've got kids at home, so they're going to balance the altruism with the life balance. So individualistic, it's power, right? How people value individuality, status, their personal influence. Again, continuum, I'm giving you guys some extreme examples. Commanding, again, Donald Trump. Collaborative, Joe Biden, I'm going to say, is more collaborative, right? He seeks the input of the other people in office and gets their opinions. Not that I watch the news, but he will collaborate with more people. He doesn't need recognition. And Donald Trump, if he didn't get all the recognition, his head would pop off and he would tweet stuff, right? Two different ends of the spectrum. And let me get my notes here real quick. So a collaborative person, they're going to be in a supporting role. They're not going to be the leader out front. They can perform their jobs and their tasks and work as a team without personal recognition. Oftentimes, if you publicly recognize somebody with a collaborative personality, they might feel uncomfortable with a light shining on them. As where the commanding person, if you don't give them praise and recognition, they could be like, why aren't you giving me praise and recognition, right? And because they are just that personality type, right? They want control, they want personal gain, they want recognition, and the collaborative wants teamwork. So the collaborative person is going to enjoy working behind the scene and getting things done. They tend to set aside their own agenda for the benefit of the company. And if you look at somebody who's commanding, right, they value status and public recognition. They like to assert control over their freedom and destiny. So they like to make decisions for themselves. There's a lot of debate currently with the vaccination, a lot of kickback because people are like, oh, you can't tell me what to do to get a vaccination. So that's somebody who tends to probably be more commanding, right? They don't want to give up their own personal freedom and somebody tell them what to do. It could be driving, it could be walking on the sidewalk, it could be how to clean off their desk. You could have a rebellious child who doesn't want to make their bed. All of those things are a commanding personality style. They prefer to lead a group. They tend to control things and people and conversations. As we're collaborative, we'll just go with the flow. So here's another good one. So if you think of how people think, how people have meaning in their life, is how they systems. Are they? So this one's kind of hard to explain. So the term for structure used to be religion. So how are people? How is their box shaped? Right, driven by traditional approaches. Husband, wife roles, proven methods for living. So their box, I'm going to say, can be a bit structured, and they don't understand how other people live, or that people might have a different point of view or a different approach to life because they're going to do things how they've always done them, right? How their parents did them. I think I've told you the story about a ham where the family was having ham for Thanksgiving dinner, and the husband asked the wife, "Why did you cut the end off the ham?" And the wife goes, "I don't know. My mom always cut the end off the ham, so that's what I've done." Right? Traditional approach, proven method. The ham fits in the pan. So the husband goes, "Well, let's ask your mom. Why did she cut the end off the ham?" And so the mom goes, "Why did you cut?" So the guy goes, "Mother-in-law, why did you cut the end off the ham?" And she goes, "I don't know, that's the way my mother always did it." So he calls the grandmother and says, "Hey, why did you cut the end off the ham?" And she goes, "Because so it would fit in the pan." So it's just structure. As where people, so structured people openly resist, no, sorry, receptive people will openly resist structured approaches, right? Like, this is the way we've always done it. Follow this rule. They're going to be like, no, I think there could be a different way. I think there could be a faster way. I think we should think about it. I think that there are these options. They always look for new ways to accomplish routine tasks, which could be bad and good. Because sometimes routine tasks, man, just check off those boxes as a structured person would, right? A structured person isn't going to ask. They're not going to rock the boat. They're going to have, defined rules. Sometimes they're really rigid rules. Like, I've got to get up at 6 a.m. every day because that's the rules they have in their head, right? It's where a receptive person can go, oh, I can get up at 6, 6:30. It's different. I don't have to do the same thing every day. me get a few more in my notes. So structured people are diligent. They work really hard. They place high value on working with defined systems, right? They know the rules. They can't live without rules. As we're receptive people, I don't care what the rules are. Your rules are different from my rules, and I'm perfectly good with that. A structured person can't see that. It's really hard for them. A structured person has really high principles and beliefs, and you probably can't argue with them because they can't see that you could see a different point of view. And they really seek consistency in the way that they approach their life, the organization, the team, and receptive. They're like, hey, it's a new idea, it's a new day. I woke up, it's great. You do your life, I'll do my life, we'll all have a great time. So two different ends of the spectrum. Again, most people, we all took stats maybe, and you can see the mean and the outliers. And it just becomes really noticeable when people are on the outlier. So I tend to be super receptive. I'm like, oh, great. Yeah, let's try that. That's a new method. It might be more efficient. Okay, that's perfect. So let's see. So receptive people create their own system for living and change when new approaches come along. We're not traditional. Don't have methods or beliefs that are, I keep doing this box thing. I'm open to any new ideas, as where a structured person has a hard time if you approach them and go, hey, maybe you could approach this spreadsheet this way. They're going to be like, nope, I've been doing the spreadsheet this way for 20 years. I'm going to continue to do it. You're like, okay, great. So they're a keeper of traditions. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I like the spreadsheet this way. I'm going to continue to use it. Doesn't matter. So those are all of the slides, and we are at 12:56. So you probably saw yourselves in some of those definitions. And again, there's no right, there's no wrong. Everybody is who they are, which is perfect in every way, right? And it helps you understand yourself just a tad bit more and relating to other people, because other people are different than you and they may fall on a spectrum. And we have clusters of behaviors typically of things that cluster together, and some things as our 12 driving forces, like things that are really highly intense for us, right? That we have to live our life that way. And other things aren't as emotional for these things. And when I see driving forces, it comes into play absolutely when emotion comes in, when you feel emotional about something, or the pit of your stomach turns because you don't want to do something or you're uncomfortable, that's when we really look at the motivators in our life. So that was a jam-packed hour. If anybody has any questions, I love this stuff and happy to answer anything if somebody has a question. I look at chat. So Rebecca says that she agrees Manon is in the middle on several of these. So I'm not sure if it was on the skill set or if it was on the some of the motivators. But I think looking at people's motivators, super, super fascinating to me. Like that intellectual thing comes out, and this is one of the things that fascinates me the most in life is people. Super fascinating. Manon, I know you had a question.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I can think of people who I work with who I think are like specific examples of who lean one way or the other, but I think I see kind of everybody and a little bit of everything. Like
Yeah. and
Melissa is very intellectual. Like I ask her a question and she can tell me the 20-year backstory of why this is now a law. And like on my end, I would just Google something that I needed to know to answer a specific question for a client. But then there are other things that Melissa might not, like a question came up about overtime hours if you're working a multi-day shift, and both of us went straight to Google. So like, yeah, but she might not have known the 20-year history of that specific question, but her instinct was to start diving into research too.
And so I'll tell you the thing with Melissa is she knew the answer, but she just had to double check it. And were you like, I don't really know the answer, I'm going to look it up. And so that's just because I know Melissa, and she's always my double checker and my fact finder and my triple checker. And so she is like that.
I was concerned that the answer that we got was what the answer was, and that's not what the client wanted to hear. So yeah, I wanted confirmation of the bad news.
Right. Give them that screenshot. Absolutely. So did anybody recognize themselves in any of the descriptions? No? Nobody recognized themselves at all? Crazy. All right. I don't have anything else. Wendy. Oh, so now I can see people's chat. That's great. So Manon is harmonious and altruistic, which is fabulous. And I love it that she's harmonious and altruistic. And so is Rebecca. And so is Lori Jones in my office. And so is Marika in my office, right?
I liked when you gave the examples of how messy is your desk or how many pictures you have hanging up, because I was literally looking around.
And if you think of resourceful versus selfless, neither one of those things in and of itself are good or bad. And if they're to the extreme, that's when people notice them. And I'm going to say that's when you guys notice stuff about me, or I notice something about you guys, is when it's like, ooh, man, it's super harmonious. She tries to make everybody happy and altruistic, right? And that's what makes me an amazing person. And Rebecca and Marika and Lori Jones, right? And you can tell Lori because she's got all those cute little calendars by her desk with the little pigs and the things. And she's got little collectibles on her desk, right? Just who she is. All righty,
Well, I have
folks.
seen, yeah, I've seen a couple
Oh.
people jump because we're over the hour, but thanks for stepping in and putting this together for us, Angela. I always think it's fascinating to like, group think and how does everybody work together and think about that, feel about things, because I perceive the world. But yes, thank you for taking the time to do this for us today.
All right. Take care, everybody. See you
Thank
next
you.
year. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.